Cold Fear was released on the Xbox Original in 2005, published by Ubisoft, a traditional in most senses survival horror game by the French game development company Darkworks, who were formed in 1998. This was their second attempt in the genre after the very well received Alone in the Dark: The New Nightmare, which I played on my Dreamcast and really enjoyed, and obviously followed by today's game. You should also check out their awesome I Am Alive survival game on the PS3. It's a real hidden gem. In the game, you are a Coast Guard veteran named Tom Hansen, and you receive a distress signal from what appears to be an abandoned Russian whaling vessel. Upon interception, however, things go from bad to worse as you discover the undead Russian crew, a wiped out CIA team, and genetic experiments gone wrong. It's a full-on horror show. You'll also have to save and team up with Anna Kamsky, the daughter of the deranged scientist, and follow the horror show from the creaky low-tech whaling ship to the massive high-tech Russian oiling rig where all the secrets are revealed and the big showdown takes place. Clued Lovers 3 lead programmer of the game had this to say about their main goals when making it. We had two main objectives. The first was to create a stormy environment out at sea. The second was to make sure that the player was equipped to fight in this specific environment. Therefore, the challenge was to build a better control scheme than what is usually the norm in horror games.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Cold Fear delivers all the survival horror tropes you were used to and most comfortable with at that point, which is really its best and worst assets in retrospect. It hit the shelves up a few months after the game changer in survival horror was released, Resident Evil 4 by Capcom. So Fear came off a little bit dated in the genre, even though it was quality and brand new at the time. But don't let any of that dissuade you, because as a pure survival horror game, it still delivers and throws a few of its own quirks into the mix. The game features a combination of tracking shot cameras and fixed angles, obviously similar to earlier Resident Evil games, but at any point you can switch to an over-the-shoulder view for investigating scenes or blasting infected crew known as exos or other dodgy parasites. The action is very satisfying with good sound design and very gratifying gore effects. Most of the missions play out with you having to find a person to advance the story. There is no map, which is an odd choice, but the ship and later oil rig are big enough not to have you lost for too long, and I think it does add to the mystery of how big is the place you're actually exploring and not knowing what is around the next corner at all. Another oddity is there is no real inventory system. You don't simply stock supplies like a mental case, but pick up and use ammo or medkits from dead enemies instantly, and there are still certain armories and med bays which you can go and get restocked instantly at any point. It's actually pretty cool because you spend zero time moving around pointless objects and obsessing over your bullet count, and simply live in the gaming moment and unleash bullet hell into anything that looks remotely dodgy. There are also no manual save points either. When you get to a critical moment in the game, it'll offer a save point for you, which is good, but there are moments that are never really clear, so you could play for a very long time and never know when the next save point will pop up. The momentum of the whaling vessel is really impressive, and the entire ship is on an axis, swaying back and forth constantly throughout the game as the storm rages on. As a character, you have to be adjusting to not only the environment but the enemies to survive, and that's a really cool, unique feature of its own design. Here's Clued on what he had to say about it. We were quickly able to make the ship move, but to achieve a more realistic movement, we had to develop a complete roll editor. When out at sea, a ship moves both on a vertical axis and a horizontal one. Our Darkwave editor allows us to separately generate the pitch and roll following two different curves, and it is the combination of both that creates a realistic movement. On the graphics front, it came out right about the time where I feel graphics took that big leap forward. Gone were those puppet hands and those amateur hour voiceovers. It still holds up very well today. Visually, the impressive physics and storm effects, very good animation, the voice work is above the usual trash of the genre, and the sound effects are very effective. Music, just like most CD-based games from the PS2 era onwards, is honestly sadly forgettable in every way. It does its background atmospheric job, but but is completely unremarkable, which I think was a major shift in the industry to try and match movie soundtracks, even though both medias are different in so many ways. It's still an impressive experience and one of those last big showcase for that generation of consoles. I think visually the fact that you can at any time, due to the whole game being an in-game engine, switch to the over-the-shoulder view really immerses you in the action so much more than simple stationary angles. There's Clue talking about how they set up that system. Another innovation is that we have a directing-orientated camera system combined with the autonomous cameras that allow the actions of the player. Depending on the action, our directors have 12 camera modes at their disposal to let the tension grow, highlight the atmosphere of a room, or lead the player towards the next event or combat. And of course, the player also has the opportunity to switch to the over-the-shoulder view at any moment. Overall, it's a survival horror trip that is well worth your time. The story is kind of generic, definitely, but the gameplay is pretty enjoyable despite some idiosyncrasies. It bombed financially upon release, with sales after 1 year only amounting to roughly 70,000 units across 3 platforms, the Xbox, PC and PS2. I think it was just poor timing. If it was released maybe 6 months before Resident Evil 4, things may have turned out quite differently, and that's the good thing about retro gaming though, being able to dive back into these games from a retrospective view and finding these unsung gems. Here's Clued one more time, giving you his perspective on what he is most proud of about the game. Cold Fear offers a never before seen visual experience in terms of animation richness. The interaction between the storm and the characters that are on the deck sometimes creates some really breathtaking moments, and on top of that, we managed to offer some really intense action sequences, featuring far more enemies than in most horror games. The player has no time for relief in Cold Fear. It is this mix of strong atmosphere and intense action I am most proud of.